All right, so I just want to say, Zidane and I run a post show after this
Yes.
stream, the Kill Stream post mortem. This past Friday, we had Baked Alaska's former manager Samaria on, and she talked about working alongside Jason Kessler on setting up a second Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. My question is, would you support a second Unite the Right rally, and would you be willing to participate in such an event should it come to fruition?
Not only have I agreed to attend, but I've also been asked to speak there. So, yeah, I'm going. I mean, ultimately, Robert E. Lee is an American hero that was opposed to slavery before, during, and after the Civil War, and he helped to stop things like the terrorist attack of Sherman's March, where they were just doing terrible things to civilians and destroying private property just to demoralize the enemy. War crimes by any standards, including by the Geneva Convention. Robert E. Lee was the only thing standing between the civilians of Virginia and the fates met by the unfortunate populaces between Sherman and his march to the sea. So General Lee is recognized as a hero in the halls of Congress. He was opposed to slavery. He fought for his home state. He's an American hero, and he has some of the best tactics and strategy, and won some impossible victories due to
That's
just
true.
the sheer
That
genius of
definitely.
his generalship. And I will go to Charlottesville, 2018, the same as I went to the one in 2017, standing up for an American hero that the Jewish Trotskyites want torn down because he represents the greatness of our past civilization and the morality of man. I will not allow these Jews to tear down another statue of a great American hero because they're coming after Jackson. They've already renamed all the schools that were named after the founders of this country, just about. And I'll be damned if they tear down a statue of General Lee. He agreed with me. Slavery is ethically wrong,
Yeah,
and
see,
it's
I
American.
live in Richmond, Virginia, and there are some gigantic, absolutely gigantic statues of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee. They call it Monuments Avenue, I believe. Not Boulevard, I think it's Avenue.
Robert E.
Um,
Lee was the greatest man of the Civil War.
there's a huge statue of Lee, Stonewall Jackson. There's a gigantic Jefferson Davis memorial as well, and they some people want to take those
Well,
down.
I
Um,
do have some criticisms of the second in command, the treasurer of the South during the Civil War. He was a Jew. He was one of the main forces for keeping slavery, and he embezzled massive amounts of money from the southern states during the war between the states. So, if there's a statue they should be tearing down, it should be the Jewish guy who ran the treasury for the South during the Civil War, who wanted to keep slaves at all costs, and who embezzled from the civilians and the military of his states during his time where he was pretending to be a liaison to England, in other words, to the Rothschilds.
tr-
Yeah,
yeah, let me read
yeah,
this. A traditional list says Ralph's in Richmond doxed himself. Yeah, I mean it's public. I've talked about being in Richmond.
I don't
Um,
know who that is.
yeah, they're saying I dox myself. I already talked about living in Richmond. It's not really a secret. Um,
Yeah, I do have a
so
follow up to that as well.
okay,
And kind of tying everything together, in the wake of the first Unite the Right rally, a lot of supporters had their information leaked online. They were doxxed. You know, they cross referenced their faces. They called people's employers, and
I know
tying
several
this
people
back
that
in.
happened to.
Say what?
I know several people that happened to personally.
Yeah. And so this kind of ties back in with Beardson. We had him on our program when the special Ralph return stream on the 23rd of February, and he had a beef with the alt right at the time. So we asked him to kind of explain it to us, and in that stream, his argument, he called the alt right a effective honeypot. He believed that the thought leaders and politicians ask for supporters to go out and mobilize and engage, and he said those supporters end up getting doxxed, fired from their jobs, and having their lives ruined by the left. And he claimed that when this happens, that those leaders and politicians do nothing to support those people under fire. And he said that they always abandon them. And I wanted to hear kind of your perspective on Beardson's issue pertaining to this. And if you, I assume you disagree,
Well,
but I'd like to further
I'm
go
gonna
into depth about it.
I'm gonna answer this with a question and then give my answer. So let's say there's a country where certain groups of people are being oppressed by a supremacist group, and anyone who publicly speaks out against it faces repercussions. is then anyone who asks people to join him in standing up against their supremacy some form of honeypot? Just put it in contextual terms where you just talk about the concept. Could we have won the Revolutionary War if people hadn't stood up and risked things?
Absolutely not.
And whether or not someone is a honeypot or not, I have read this book by James Mason, and he actually has some good input on this. Now, I think there's a lot of bullshit in that book, but some of the reasons he came to those conclusions because of how black-pilled he became. And ultimately, you should read some of his black pill experiences because there are very real honeypots. There are clan groups run by Jews. There are at one point a leader of a Nazi party somewhere was a Jew that was just trying to make people look outrageous. So use your judgment. I mean, there's always the chance that when you take a risk or a leap of faith, it could end badly. I'm happy that I'm still in one piece. So take leaps of faith. Use your judgment. And ultimately, if you see someone leading by example, they don't want fans. They want you to join them. And use your judgment, because if you're going to dox yourself, I know lots of people that haven't doxed themselves that say they haven't met a sure enough thing yet. So don't let uncertainty be the thing that keeps you from standing up against Jewish supremacism. Let the character of the people that you are choosing to stand next to be the metric by which you decide whether or not to stand up. But fear shouldn't be a motivator. And if you just universally say that I fear repercussions because standing up to Jewish supremacism, that isn't the real argument. We wouldn't have any freedoms now if that had been an argument in the past. The real argument is, are these people doing things that are designed to isolate whites and make us look like we're just violent monsters?